And welcome to the Township of Whitewater Region's Budget Committee meeting for Wednesday, January 14th. It's noon, and we're going to call ourselves to order. And just before we do the land acknowledgement, which I was going to ask Councillor Bell to do, if he's prepared to do it in a moment. I just wanted to recognize that we have a new clerk filling the role today. So Kim Balmer is got called in just on a contract. Our normal clerk is just not available right now. So in order to make sure that we could facilitate the meeting as much as possible with the CAO's full attention on the budget discussion, we've asked for a secondary qualified clerk to come in and clerk our meeting. So be patient if I am not giving the cues correctly. I'm sure Mr. Balmer here will just elbow me. Excellent. Good. And with that, I will hand the floor over to Councillor Bell for our land acknowledgement, please.
As we gather, we'd like to acknowledge on behalf of the Township of Whitewater Region and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of Indigenous people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years.
Thank you for that. Next item on our agenda, and I'll just remind people that might be aware of our usual agenda. Because it's a committee meeting, our procedural bylaw has a kind of an abbreviated agenda format. So we go directly into the approval of our agenda. And I don't have a resolution here, but I am going to say the recommendation is that the Budget Committee approve the agenda as provided. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Trim. Is there anybody who'd like to make an amendment or change to the agenda? I see none, and with that we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you. The next is our approval of some minutes, and we have a number of minutes here from December 8th and December 11th, and they are enclosed and available. The recommendation is that the Budget Committee approve the December 8th and 11th, 2025 Budget Committee minutes. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Olmsted, seconded by Councillor White. Any errors or omissions noted by any member of Council? Committee? None. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Declarations. Is there any declarations that need to be made by any member of this committee? I see none. I'll move on to item number 1, which is our budget presentation. And the recommendation is that the Budget Committee of the Township of Whitewater Region recommends 3 things. The first one, the Mayor present the 2026 operating capital and user fee budgets as finalized by the Budget Committee. That the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region enact bylaws to adopt the Mayor's 2026 budget as recommended. And 3, continuing the development of a 10-year capital plan based on funding and the 2026 asset management plan with the Budget Committee. A mover and a seconder, please. Okay, that's moved by Councillor Olmsted and seconded by Councillor Moore. CAO, you're going to provide a lead-in to the discussion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and commence the 2026 draft budget presentation. I think this would finalize, the intent of today's presentation is to finalize the 2026 budget and to continue discussions on our 5-year projections. So I just want to start by thanking the Mayor together with Council for the involvement. I think with these changes in legislation, strong mayors, I think that the collaboration of all of Council together with staff, together with the public, I think it demonstrates that we're working in this democratic system. I just want to recognize that for staff, we appreciate the involvement and the inclusion of all members of Council, staff, and the public in the process. What's going to be presented today is sort of a refined version of our previous budget presentations. We've reduced it down to 67 slides from, well, I think over 100. So we should be able to go through it relatively quick, noting that we have sort of refined the presentation, recognizing that based on our observations that there'll be more deliberations on certain topics. namely the capital budget, I think is one of the areas where there'll be sort of more discussion. We feel as though the deliberations from council were a bit less on the operating, and I think there's, we're going to go over it to some degree, but we've refined that quite a bit. Water wastewater is shaped by our financial plan and our water wastewater rate study. So, I mean, the recommendations from staff to council align with that plan. So it's pretty direct from the plan. And then the projections. So the projections is something we've presented to council at a previous budget meeting. They're unfunded. They present a lot of constraints, a lot of competing priorities. And I think that, in order to progress forward, we need to manage the 2026 budget and move it towards approval and continue the conversation on these projections. I don't think we're going to be able to complete this idea of 5-year projections in the time frame of getting this budget approved. And approving the 2026 budget will allow staff to move forward with the implementation of the budget. So whether it's going to tender, whether it's issuing RFPs or procuring things, we can move forward with that and try to get in it ahead of the other communities who are all doing the exact same thing as us. So we'll recap where we stand on the percentage of operating and capital. I will highlight that we're at 1.6% increase on the levy for operating, and that's net of our growth. And that includes the removal of reserves for OPP and the like. And then we're following that 4.2% capital, which is the 4.2 which we've implemented in the last 2 or 3 years, which aligns with our asset management plan as it stands today. So while the mayor's direction did indicate an upset limit of 7%, we're presently sitting at 5.8% levy increase. So recognizing the efforts from staff and together with council, the efforts to try to reduce that as much as we can. So I'll go through a few slides if you allow me, Curtis. So we'll just walk through it. So again, we've kept this mission vision from our strategic plan in our slide deck. So noting that the township delivers municipal services to a welcoming community, and that we maintain a rural quality of life by balancing sustainability and growth. And then our strategic plan identifies sort of 5 areas: infrastructure, environment, economic development, recreation, and corporate performance. So these are the areas of focus in our the 10-year strategic plan. It was adopted by the previous council. I think it may have been 2 councils ago. And then our current council adopted the strategic direction, which is kind of a supplement to our strategic plan. And then these are the areas of focus: long-term financial planning, sustainability, which aligns with this 5-year projection; facility direction, which again will transpire as part of these financial planning discussions; service levels; staffing culture; growth and economic development. So these are the strategic directions from the current council. Our budget schedule is outlined here. So we started back on September 16th, where the mayor gave direction to the CAO to sort of prepare the budget subject to about 7 or 8 bullets. And we feel as though what's being presented today sort of aligns with those bullets. We had all-day staff budget, one all-day staff, or one all-day budget meeting. We held the public meeting. We sort of consolidated that all back into today's meeting. So we've met, how many times, Curtis? Is it 5 or 6? 5 meetings with members of council together with public. So again, here's the mayoral direction that was provided back in September. So the first 3 bullets here refer to these projections. So projections with respect to the budget forecast, recognizing inflation, cost of living, the asset management plan, our contributions or allocations from the province, OCIF, and then also recognizing that the county of Renfrew, the Ministry of Education also play a part in our actual tax rate or tax collected. 5-year projections with respect to capital and without water wastewater, but then again 5-year rated projections based on for water and wastewater. And then the next 4 bullets sort of primarily align with the 2026 budget. So just recognizing that the first bullet, recognizing that the growth shall be included in the 2026 operating budget, that user fees shall align with inflation, and also recognizing that they should be contributing to capital reinvestment needs. Bullet 6, that the 2026 consider feedback from the community, council members, following the direction from the mayor prior to the end of 2025. And that number 7, that the proposed change in budget aligns with the overall objective of inflation. And also noting here is the 7% maximum tax requirement together with the 3.4 affordability measure that we've been using, which I'll speak to very shortly. So I think that what's being presented to council now and together with the subsequent council meeting, which this is a committee, we're going to recommend to council, all aligns with this mayoral direction. But it also, we're not done, I don't think. I think there's still some work to be done on the five-year plan. Yeah, go ahead. So the affordability component, so this whole question of affordability, how do we assess affordability? How do we develop metrics on affordability? So just reiterating, I mean, the members of council have heard me say this before. This will probably be the 3rd time that you hear it. But the affordability component essentially limits our property taxes on the median household income to 3.4%. So if we take the median assessment, determine the residential property tax accorded to that, that should not be greater than 3.4%. I think currently with the present budget, not knowing what the county is going to do, we're probably sitting around 3.23, 2 decimal points. Great, Curtis. 3.23. So we're not quite there, but again, there's variables there, right? It's dependent on what the county does. This, I think, is one of the constraints. If we look at our 5-year projection, and if we're going to limit ourselves to 3.4, and I'm not saying we have to, that will provide a constraint for the amount of revenue generated for capital investment, to name one area. So this 3.4% is established in the BMA Consulting Inc. report, and it's a report that's prepared comparing over 100 municipalities, and they determine benchmarks for socio-economic, financial, and service delivery indicators. So this is one way of looking at affordability in your community. There are other ways. I think one of the things I'd like to do is just to see where other communities in Renfrew County align, get their median assessment, get their median or their property taxes on that median assessment, and see what percentages they are. I think that'd be an interesting exercise, just to see where we align with our partners or our neighbors. So this is something that we need to keep looking at as we move into the projection component of it. But we are aligning at the 3.32, you said, Curtis?
Yeah,
3.23 percentage. So again, that 1% levy increase represents $77,485. So when I noted the 5.8% increase, 5.8% is where we stand today. So it would be 5.8 times 77,485. So that's the additional levy money we're generating from property taxes, and 4.2% of that is going to capital, and the other portion is going to operating. And then the breakdown of every dollar based on the 2025 is so we hold the lion's share, recognizing that we're at 40%. The county are at 31%. Education at 13% and policing at 9%. So this circular table will change. I mean, once the county adopts their budget, it might represent a greater percentage, might represent less, but we'll update council when that becomes available. Typically, we would do that as part of the tax rate adoption bylaw. So we'll present a new circular graph when we get to that, which will be in April, May-ish? May, yeah. Thanks. And then this is just that table chart, just recognizing the current countywide property taxation and rate increases from 2025. So where we sit is kind of in that middle of the pack, which I think is based on the deliberations from council. That's kind of where we want to be throughout the county. And then that red line were the increases in 2025. And then the next slide is examining sort of a greater comparator municipalities based on services. Water, wastewater, recreation, to name sort of 3 areas of service. And then sort of narrows down the municipalities that are included. And again, we're kind of in the middle of the pack there, recognizing that our communities are different than sort of Renfrew and Pembroke. But again, here's a comparator as a way to see how we fit into the whole regional approach. I'll pass it over to you, Curtis. You keep looking.
Thank you. So Ivan has already kind of mentioned this part, that the operating increase still sits at 1.6%. That's including the inflation pressures, the final billing for OPP, and our actual insurance allocations. There's been no changes to the overall operating budget since the last two presentations. I will note that, and that's why we were able to kind of condense that operating portion and have less overall time spent on that and more focus on the capital side. So the public comments, so at the meeting on the 11th, we both received verbal comments as well as since that meeting some via email. They were all distributed to council via the clerk. So one of the ones was talking about taxation increases that have happened over the number of years and the thought of using shared services. One that was noted was the county to eliminate in-house services. I'm sure you've all seen that email. Another comment was about OPP. The main question was how it was billed to the township and the overall cost of it. It's something that I know the mayor and the CAO are bringing to different pieces about, I believe, Roma as a delegation to talk about that cost. The other one was what is the cost increase of changing the condition of gravel roads? That was a comment or a question that had already been brought up before, and we had included it in the a la carte piece, talking about bringing the roads from a 15-year cycle by the time we're able to come back to it to actually a 10-year cycle, what the cost for that would be. And we'll talk more about that when I get to the transportation section. The overall cost of consultants to the township, which was answered at that time for the specific question that was asked, but it was just a note that was brought up. Solar panels and their revenue, subsidized non-resident costs at the Pembroke Pool, and then consider change of use, change of area space at the year-round sports besides ice hockey and skating. Then we look at the key highlights for capital. So again, there's no change here from what has always been presented. Is the 4.2, which is based on the 2022 asset management plan. Still holding strong. The public comments for capital. Again, these were all received verbally, and additionally some in written, but from the same residents. So why was the design line not included for the 2026 budget? And the question came of the history of the road. That was a request by council, so we provide some information. That's on the next slide, and there's a leaflet in front of you. Why does the township need 5 fire halls and equipment, and is there efficiencies to be found? Can services be contracted out to extend the life of equipment, i.e. hauling of gravel? And does the township need indoor arenas, or could we switch to, could a switch be made to outdoor rinks? These were all comments that were received either verbally or in writing, and all been disseminated to council. So the first slide, kind of to answer one of the questions, because it was asked by council, was what was the history of Zion Line? And it's on the leaflet in front of you if it's too hard to see on the actual PowerPoint. So the green line furthest to the left that's the chunk between Hyla Road and Beachburg Road. You'll notice it's noted as DST as 2023 is when it was just redone. The piece between Sturgeon Mountain and Beachburg Road was 2014. Had a single surface treatment applied to the top of it. Originally the road was done 2006. Same thing with from Sturgeon Mountain to Papin Road. 2014 was whenever a single surface was applied to that, so that's the third lift. Then from Papin Road to West Ross Road, 2009 is when it received its third lift. And then DST, it was done in 2010 on the chunk of road from West Ross Road to Fortress Falls Road. I'll actually pass it over to the Manager of Public Works if he wants to make any comment at this point in time, just about that before the council.
I have no comments.
Perfect. The other piece that was noted on the slide too, because there was a question about per kilometer cost for asphalt with active transportation, without active transportation, per kilometer cost of double surface treatment and single surface treatment. So those have all been noted on that slide. Asphalt single lift, 200,000 per kilometer. I will note from the public presentation that there was an amount that was indicated by one of the residents that made the comment for pavement. And this is higher than that amount, but it also involves the subgrade work because we believe the amount he was referencing was just the actual pavement itself, which does align, but there's all the subgrade work of culverts, building in the road, all that type of other construction work that needs to be done when you're rehabilitating a road before pavement. not just the asphalt surface itself. So that's why these amounts are listed the way they are. The next one that we left in was just to illustrate that the township itself, between the 25 budget to 2026 budget proposed, shows a decrease of overall staff at the township of 1.5. So we went from 37.27 full-time equivalent staff down to 35.71. So then we just roll into the general operating. We left in here the budget categories. And these are the ones that come from the FIR. So it's your general government, your protective services, transportation services, environmental, recreation and culture, and then planning and development. And these are all the subcategories that fall under those main headings. General government seen no changes from the last presentation, so it was removed from this presentation. Protective services, again, seen no change. We left transportation services in, just a quick slide, as well as environmental services, and I'll get to those now. And then planning and development and recreation culture also were removed. So under the transportation, the only reason we brought this back is just to illustrate what gravel roads are planned for the 2026 year, to include that map. So you'll notice it's in red. Not real easy to see on that screen, I see, but so the roads that are planning to be done, there's Acres Road, so Mindview Road to Olmsted Jeffrey Lake, Garden of Eden Road, so it's Godfrey Road to the gravel section, and then remove the DST portion. Broome Road, Almac Road, Desjardins Road, which goes from Lookout Road to Pleasant Valley, and then from Pleasant Valley to Hawthorne, Nangor Trail, and Point Trail. Under environmental services, there's only a slight change to the recycling program, and that's due to the ICI. So Public Works staff did a review of the number of properties that will actually be qualifying for the ICI, and that has actually increased to 153. It was originally 129. Through that review, it was just as to what businesses would classify for that and what would qualify for that charge. So the slight change has been made to that, the recycling. However, the revenue offsets the exact expense, so it doesn't change anything on the budget. It's just, to me, noted here. So then on the waste user fees, this is the only part of the user fees that you'll actually see here today, is the garbage collection, because that was a question that was brought up. It is still recommended by staff side to leave the piece as the garbage collection fee is $168 for residential properties, and then the ICI properties will have the billing of $446. To put where that cost had come from, it's designed to go from the low side of the estimate due to the fact that we don't know what the total tipping fees could come in for as to how much recycling will actually come through or how many times we'll have to tip the bins. So you'll see that the curbside collection cost, which is the contract to the contractor, is $357 per stop. The tipping fees for the Blue Box program that's collected would be the low estimate of $59 per stop. And then the landfill ICI Blue Box hauling and tipping, so that's the actual bin from the option 2, which was chosen for the ICI collection, is $30 per stop. So it works out to be $446 per stop. This slide has not changed, just due to the fact that it's in and out for that revenue portion due to the user fee portion of it, so it still comes to the 1.6. And this is where I'll pause for questions.
Thank you, Treasurer. So what we'll do is you basically, at this point, you can ask questions in any portion between slide 1 to 28. And it's important, we'll come back, depending on what the questions are, we'll come back and just make sure that we acknowledge that those public questions at the end, if it's not part of anybody else's questions. So, Councillor White, you're up first.
Thank you. What is on page 25, or in slide 25, you're talking about landfill ICI Blue Box hauling and tipping fees, $30 per stop. So I'm not understanding how many stops we have then. If it's just from the landfill, it's
No.
only one stop then?
No, so those are the ICI, so the overall ICI is charged based on the 153 stops. So the total cost would be about $4,500. It's divided by the 153, so it comes into $30 per stop. It's what the averaged out cost is. So having the bin at the landfill there's still no funding for that to be at a landfill site. So by having it included with the ICI cost, whether a business has their recycling picked up at their curb or brings it to the landfill, this charge is still covering the cost of that material to be taken and processed. I can pass it to the environmental
Yeah,
superintendent.
sorry. You lost me on that one too?
So what it is there's a total cost for the curbside collection. There's a total cost for the tonnage that's collected at the curbside, and then so if you imagine the amount of material that we collect, there is a tipping fee that we pay for that. So say they collect 1,000 tons, it costs us $107 or about $300, sorry, per ton. So that's the second one. They've taken the total and they've divided it by, we've taken the total of that cost that's estimated for the year and divided amongst the 153 stops. And then it gives us sort of an estimate of, that's what the cost for the tipping fees would be from the curbside material. And then the third piece is if we still permit the ICI businesses to bring blue box waste also at the landfill, those costs would also have to be recovered, if you follow me, because any material that a business brings to the landfill is not covered by the CMO funding that we would receive. So this is just basically showing all the costs to allow blue box material either at the curbside or at the landfill, and then just sort of them broken out by piece, what that sort of represents. And then the total coming in at $446 per stop. Does that clarify things?
I'll throw one more, just if Councillor White will allow me, I'll just, if I was to add up 1, 2, and 3, it comes to your estimate at 446 on a low side.
That's correct. And the 446 would be 1 and then 2A and 3. So because the tonnage is sort of an estimate, we've given a high and a low estimate. So the lower estimate, which we're a bit more comfortable with, is the 446.
Good?
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Trim.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, on the same topic through you to the director, does that mean then that residents, not ICI, but residents will no longer be permitted to bring recycling to the landfill site?
Residents will be able to bring recycling to the landfill site, and that is being covered by Circular Materials Ontario. So the cost for that is covered by Circular Materials Ontario. So essentially what the CMO is covering is they've established a certain tonnage that's representative of the residents, which is, I think it was 20.4 tons. And then any tonnage over and above that we collect, that would be assumed to be the commercial material. So looking at our previous year, the 2025, we looked at the total tonnage that we received, which was about 24 tons. Circular Materials Ontario is going to essentially pay and cover for 20 tons. So we would be responsible for 4 tons, which is essentially what they're saying is due to the commercial businesses. So that is what that third line represents, partly is the tonnage and the hauling of that material.
And so at the landfill site, it will
not be distinguished between, there will not be separate bins, it's all one bin and we are commingling. Yeah, so everything can go in one bin, both residential and commercial. And they've said they'll essentially haul, CMO will cover a set number of bins per year that they will haul, and there will be no cost to us. Anything over and above that is what comes back as, and the municipality will be responsible for covering.
That's clear, thank you.
Good. For some reason, that's a very logical approach. I wish they would do it the other way too. Anyway, Councillor Moore.
Maybe not a good time to bring this up, and I think I may have already. What happens with the businesses ICI out there that never put out a blue box, but yet they have to pay the fee? I'm specifically looking at churches who only have Sunday service and don't put out any blue boxes. And all of a sudden, they have to pay this $400 and some a year. And also then there's the fair boards. What are they going to do, et cetera? So there's a lot of questions to ask, but there are groups out there like the churches that never put out a blue box.
Is there a staff response? Yeah.
Yeah, so staff are in the process of putting together a waste management bylaw that would essentially set out all of the rules on which properties are paying the ICI collection fee. And staff are discussing and proposing that there would be some opt-out provisions in the bylaw. We know that there are some businesses already that have larger, like 6-yard bins at their businesses for collecting things like cardboard and such. And sort of the intention that we're talking through is whether or not a business could apply to opt out because they have an alternate service in place. Another thing we were discussing is exactly that. How would the churches be handled? Would that be something that council would choose to like let them opt in if they want, or would they be opt out and then have to apply? So those are things to be worked through. And the churches, we looked, there was about 10 properties that we want to bring. Staff want to bring back that and really get into the weeds on exactly how we allow opt in and opt out. That's clear.
So just to highlight that, we recognize those questions. They aren't something that we need to solve as part of the budget. Really, the question from a budget perspective is, this is what the cost will be. How are we going to raise the funds to cover the cost? And then the subsequent questions will have to get answered as part of that bylaw review.
Understand, thank you.
Good, and I'm gonna go with Councillor Bell.
So just to confirm on the interim tax bills that come out, these ICI properties won't be receiving an extra $446 charge for the first half of the year until this bylaw gets confirmed.
Treasurer?
That's correct. So the interim bylaw is based on 50% of last year's taxes. So no changes that we make here today will be seen on that interim tax bill until the final tax bill goes out in August. So until August happens, nothing of these user fees that are based on the taxation or based into taxation will be seen yet. No revenue is generated from any of that type of stuff. It's just based on 50% last year. So whatever they had were billed in 2025, they see automatically 50% of that.
Good, and Councillor Trim?
Yes, and I understand that these rates are based on the fact that we are tendering, I guess the correct word would be, with 6 or 7 other municipalities, and that this is, we're going to be in some kind of a trial period to see how this works out. Am I correct on thinking that?
Yeah, so it's not a tender. It is essentially sole sourced because of the timelines on this, but there are 9 of us in total, and the pricing that we were provided was contingent on all of the municipalities that have committed to working together. And the contract, as we understand it, will say that it's for 1 year, and there will also include provisions for, we believe, 2 one-year extensions. So I think the intention of what we've heard from most of the some of the municipalities is that they just want to do it for 1 year and see how it goes. And then at the end of the first year, reevaluate where things sit. And then if we all want to extend, the pricing presumably would stay the same. If some drop out, there might be some negotiation again for a second year, but this is being taken as a 1 year, see how it works first.
Good, Councillor Olmsted, please.
So just to be clear on the 2 lines, the garbage collection fee and the recycling collection fee, the $168 fee is for both recycling and garbage, right? For households?
So the 168 is for garbage collection, and it, dare I say this, carries some of the costs for like the household hazardous waste depot, some of the costs for the landfill. So that's essentially it's mostly the 2 bags you put out for garbage and then access to the landfill for garbage. The second line is just recycling. So if you recall the 168, the garbage collection fee, the township is no longer responsible for delivering recycling for residents. So that is not a part of that, no.
Okay, and so on the second line, they're not going to be paying the 446 plus the 168, it's just the straight 446, correct?
It would be 168 for garbage and access to the landfill. And the 446 is just recycling and recycling access to the landfill.
So on their tax bill, they're going to see
Two
two
separate.
lines, 168 and 446.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this single slide? No, I just want to make sure that we are clear on the funding of this, because we haven't spoken about that yet. There was a proposal, I think Councillor Bell put it forward, to see whether or not we could take that 446 and distribute it in a different way. That has not proven to be an option for us, based on some legal advice. So from a council perspective, what's back on the floor is this, as what Councillor Olmsted just said, each business, each church, each of these 153 places will receive both of these charges as part of their tax bill. Now, they won't see it until August, according to the treasurer, even though we're going to start to incur those costs last week. From a council perspective, what are your thoughts on how we manage this new expense? Councillor Bell, please.
So we spoke to increasing that garbage collection fee, 168, it would have ended up to be 187 or something, if I remember that correctly. That's what you're speaking to, is it's proven through legal advice that's probably not the right avenue. What about, would there be a way to add not that I want to increase the fees at the landfill, but would there be a way to do a portion of a fee whenever you go into the landfill as a means of collecting revenue to pay for this program on an annual basis? And what I mean by that is, would we be able to look at the revenue generated from the landfill as look at what percentage increase we would need for every user that goes in there on every Wednesday and Saturday to make up the difference of that 446 per ICI property? So this wouldn't just you wouldn't be seeing this as an increase on the 168, but we pay a fee whenever we go to the dump and dump a half-ton, dump a trailer. Would there be a way to add a small percentage onto each one of those loads as a means of collecting revenue to pay for this specific fee?
Staff.
It kind of would fall into the same type of thought process or same recommendation of legal as the original thought of putting it onto the garbage collection fee, because it's not just residential properties or not just commercial properties that are coming in there. The fee itself, that's the challenge of putting it onto to adding it to different fees, because we'd have to review again whether the recycling cost itself could be attributed into the cost of the landfill. Potentially it could, but that would be, my initial thought would be it would fall similar to the original recommendation from legal.
Councillor Bell.
So I just keep cycling back to this because I don't want to see our small businesses and our churches pay an additional user fee tax if we can avoid it by some percentage, by raising the revenue in a small percentage somewhere else. Correct me, but I'm looking at this as if the township collects revenue to pay for this, even if it's not, if by, through the budget discussions today, we decided as a council that Whitewater region as a corporation is just going to take care of this fee, this $446, not necessarily stating where it's coming from, but recognizing that we need to generate that 446 times 159 properties for 2026 to pay for this for the ICI. Increasing the user fee at our landfill, not necessarily with a special assessment to go towards that, but recognizing that to make up for this shortfall of 446 times 159, we look at that by increasing our landfill charges by X percentage to generate that revenue without not putting a specific line for accounting for that. Is that not a way that we could, like, we adjust user fees based on, based on a bunch of different decisions every year? Could we not just adjust that user fee, recognizing that we just need to collect that extra percentage this year to pay for that program?
If you'll allow me, I think so the first thing is that the actual cost of this won't be implemented until the final billing, as Treasurer McGonigal noted. So there's a bit of time to look at different options. So I would just say that. The discussion with the superintendent is that the strategy is to come back with a bylaw to determine whether or not you could opt in, opt out. So there's some time to work through things. So I think that is one way that we could look at to see how we could generate more revenue, cost per visit, $1 or something like that, generate that into the, and then vet that with legal to see if it would make sense. So noted, I would say, as an alternative way to fund it. You think of like, I wasn't in the call, but I was talking to Treasurer McGonigal before today's meeting about this discussion. I said, well, what about the arenas? Arenas, you pay $143 for your hour, and taxation pays for the other proportional cost of that arena. And there was the lawyer kind of had the sense that, well, the arena is accessible by all of the population. So I think we just need to look at it a bit more, but this is a mechanism by which we could generate revenue. Let's look into it in greater depths and see if it's an alternative. And how would you actually implement that? Is it $1 per visit? Is it additional cost on tonnage? There's a few ways to do it. So if that's okay, we could continue to investigate that.
Follow up.
Yeah, and sorry if I may, Mayor. And that's my only concern, is that we're discussing this right now, recognizing that we need to, we're going to pay for this no matter what, but I just want to make sure, by the sounds of it, that the bylaw is coming, we can discuss this further. This isn't set in stone that all ICI properties are getting a $446 extra fee on their bill come October, whatever, August.
The present fees and charges bylaw that's attached to the council agenda has no amount in it for this, so it's blank at present moment, and it will amend that fees and charges bylaw when we make a decision on how we're going to fund this.
I'm just going to jump in before I give the floor to Councillor Trim. From a council perspective, could the argument be, we have made the decision to provide this level of service to our ICI residents. We're not sure how that's going to jig out for another 6 months. Could we make the commitment to cover it with general taxation until we sort it out at the time that the bylaw is presented, whether or not there's another source of revenue?
I would say it's possible. The piece that would be noted would be is because technically taxation can pay for any service that the township deems to provide. So then the taxation piece the total cost was around $63,000, I believe, if memory serves. So let's say we're in March or so, whenever it happens, so 1/4 of that. So you'd see about a 1/4%, not quite, of an overall increase to the overall levy. Instead of the 5.8, it would have to be added in to bring us closer to 6.05, somewhere around that range.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the argument being that we're trying to make sure that we divert recycling away from the landfill, which is a benefit to all residents.
Correct.
Yeah. Council, it puts it in a little bit of a gray area, but at least we are acknowledging that, yes, we are accepting the cost. We are not directing that it be put on the ICI identified users at this point in time, and we'll make that final decision as part of the bylaw. Good, and I'll go to, sorry, CAO, do you want to counter first?
If I could just, to the treasurer, ask the question is, can we leave it unfinanced and deal with it at the tax rate in May? That was kind of be the charge. So we're not actually going to present that we're increasing the levy by another 0.3% now when we
Yeah.
communicate this to the public, the budget to the public. It would be dealt with at a tax rate time in May. Thanks.
Good. Good. Thank you. Councillor Trim.
Yes, that's all fine, and I certainly am not disagreeing with it, but I'm reminded that the philosophy of the province, they did this on purpose. They want the ICIs to contribute to the cost of recycling. That's what they want. It's not an accident, it's their philosophy, their plan. What's unfair about it is that everybody gets charged the same rate, whether you're a big business or a small business or a little church or a big church. That's the unfair part about it. But the philosophy, the province is very clear on it. They do want the businesses to contributing to the cost of recycling. So I don't know how we squiggle and squeeze around that, but we need to be, what I want is to be very, very transparent with the people who are actually going to pay for it, the taxes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, and again, that's the process by which we make that implement that bylaw. Is it one price for everyone? Is there opt-out? Is there opt-in? There's a whole bunch of things that I think will have to get ironed out as part of that bylaw. Will help answer that point that you've raised. Anything, CAO?
Yeah, and maybe the strategies to fund it from revenue from elsewhere is like you do that over 3 years and then they'll pay, 75% of that and 85%, and then you could, we'll look at those options if you want.
Yeah. So I think it's a great discussion because I think it's given staff some perspective as to our viewpoint on the problem. Good. Are we good to carry on past this? Oh, Councillor Olmsted.
No, just a sticky point. Again, trying to understand, coming from a business side as well, is it accurate to say that it was legal before the new laws come out to share it across because everybody paid the 168, and now due to the new changes, they've made it illegal? Is that what advice we're receiving from our legal team?
Which staff?
Treasurer.
I can. So the issue is that before recycling was provided by the township, because we were the actual payer of the contract to every property. So that cost was disseminated to all properties that benefited from the service. We were providing recycling, we were providing garbage, we were providing the actual contractor that picked it up. But in it, the other side of it was the government was providing us a grant to help us do the recycling piece. Now it is switched around that we're not receiving money from the government as a grant because they've removed us completely from the recycling equation. So since we're not doing that service for all 3,800 or 780 properties anymore, we're only going to do recycling for these 153. That's where it becomes challenging because it's no longer a majority of seeing it or of incurring these costs. That's where the issue comes in, is the fee for service through the Municipal Act it's a fee for the service of the people who benefit from that service. So if you're not receiving the service or you can't receive the service, there's no need for a resident to receive recycling from us. They're already getting it from the province. So it's not a service that the municipality needs to provide to them. We're only providing it to these 153. That's where the issue comes in, it's not part of the overall collection cost anymore. We're doing a separate collection because it's even a separate truck that goes out on a Friday to pick up your commercial stuff now. It's not even with your garbage the way it used to be. I hope that.
Yeah, that's clear. Thank you.
Good. And when we come back to talk about this bylaw, we're going to have to make sure there's a legal component to that discussion. Good. Councillor Trim.
Yes, and I asked that very question of the minister in a workshop at AMO. And Minister Flack's answer was, we never paid for the commercial garbage pickup. And I didn't get an explanation of that because I understood it was the way the grant was structured. And so As far as the ministry is concerned, there's no change. It's just the administration of it, and what people see is definitely a big change. So that's the answer I got for the question that Councillor Olmsted is asking.
No, great points. Good. Have we got enough on this point from a staff perspective? I just want to make sure, okay? I want to be able to move this budget on, okay? Good, so that we are going to be coming back to. That is a great big placeholder for that discussion in the future. So are there any other questions before I go to the specific slides here? Any other general questions on slides 1 to 28? Okay, I'm going to go to slide 14, which is the public comments on operating. And I just wanted to make sure that we, as a council, publicly acknowledge this feedback that we received from a number of different residents. And is there anything, like the treasurer's already articulated, we are investigating the OPP billing as part of advocacy through Roma and AMO. We have a continued effort to look at shared services and fee-for-services from the county and other agencies. Point number 1 there. Is there any other direction or questions or comments from members of council on any of that public feedback? Good, Councillor Moore?
Can somebody refresh my memory of what we decided about funding Pembroke Pool? Did we ever have a talk about that, or was it just sort of put off till another meeting and we never did it?
Yeah, CEO?
I would just say the staff are continuing to engage together with the city of Pembroke and the town of Renfrew of recreational services, and I think our manager spoke to the city of Pembroke as recently as this week or late last week. Maybe you could provide an update.
So the city of Pembroke is interested in pursuing a type of agreement for this summer, and we would look forward to see what we can put forward. It sounds like it's going to probably be a matter of us coordinating more and them providing confirmation of the registrations, but we would look forward to that in the budget.
And will it be annual or just summer learning how to swim type thing?
Summer, the same
Just
type
summer.
of program that ran in 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, then I can say that we have duly acknowledged the public input into the operating component of the budget. Thank you, Treasurer, for doing that. The next slide I would like to go to is slide number 16, which is the public comments that we received from Capital and the associated response from staff on slide 17. Is there any comments, questions, or points that council wants to make on this public comment, these public comments? Yes, sorry, Councillor White.
Yes, regarding Zion Line, excuse me, and Government Road. So in this year's budget, we're proposing $660,000 for Government Road and nothing for Zion Line, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so for Zion Line, if I add up these three numbers, we have spent $2.3 million on Zion Line. And in that same amount of time, how much money have we spent on Government Road? Do we know?
I'm sorry, are you talking the sheets that I handed out? So it's not an add up. So it's different costings. So the top one is costing of $1 million asphalt if the road was widened to meet the active transportation. For the same chunk of road, it's Fortress Falls to West Ross. Same chunk of road, if we were to do just asphalt and not widen the road, $700,000, which is unwidened, wouldn't meet the active transportation plan. And then if we were to just do asphalt from Papin Road, or sorry, DST from Papin Road to Fortress Falls Road, would be $660,000. They're individual costs, they're not added up. That would be the cost if you were to do that road over Government Road this year.
Okay. So we've done work on Zion Line in 2000, since 2006.
You got it, yeah.
Okay. What about Government Road? What have we done on Government Road in between 2006 and now?
I'll pass that to the manager of Public Works.
Oh, yeah, so Government Road, sorry, in 2016, they did a DST and then they surfaced a portion of the road. It was all done in 1 year in 2016.
So DST and,
And a single surface, all in 1 year.
do we know the cost of what that was roughly?
Not total cost. I have the cost just for what they paid for the contractor, but I didn't have the cost for the gravel and everything else.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from members of council? Yeah, Councillor Trim.
I'm just wondering, is this the time that we're going to be deciding with respect to these two roads? Is this the point where we're going to be having the discussion to decide? As it is now, the recommendation is Government Road, but I don't want to be interfering with what you have planned, Mr. Mayor.
No, this is the point in time that we want to discuss this, and it rolls up into the resolution that we have at the end of the meeting. So yes, if you want to discuss this road, Zion Line versus what's been proposed in the budget, this is the time to do it.
May I continue then?
Yes, please.
Okay. To prepare myself for this meeting, I did have a chat with the Director of Public Works, and I know much of this information that's being presented today. Also, that isn't included here is the traffic count, and so personally, I need to make a decision on some facts. I know that there are probably people living on Government Road that could come and make an impassioned plea for us to do that road. According to the director, both roads are in similar disrepair. We can't say one is significantly worse than the other, and so I'm not prepared to flip a coin here. I want to base my decision on other facts. The traffic count is somewhat more on Zion Line. I'm not going to say twice as much, but it is considerably more.
Sorry to interrupt, but it is on this sheet.
Oh, sorry, I missed it. I was told it, but I'm not, okay. And the dates of rehabilitation are older for the Zion Line. So based on all of those facts, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to say now, before you ask me, that I'm going to recommend that we do spend our budget money this year on the rehabilitation of the Zion Line, whatever that means. And because I know that included, there could be some culvert work. I know the brushing has been done, but there could be some culvert work and some gravel. And so whatever it means is what I'm going to be voting for. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments on Zion Line? Sorry, and I've seen you already, so I'll go to other people. Councillor Moore?
I know it was discussed at the time that Government Road was the older of the two, and that we had thought maybe we would continue with doing that road, and then we had the delegation of the Zion Line. I'm sure we could get another delegation from Government Road to say the same thing. And it's not to pick a fight between the two, but we've found this in many years of council, whether it be Sturgeon Mountain Road or whatever. Anytime we go to do work on it, somebody always feels that there's another road requires more urgent help. So in keeping with the staff point of view, the staff are saying it's time to do Government Road. And of the complaints that I've received in the last 3 years, majority are from Government Road. But other councillors are getting the complaints from Zion Line, so probably equals out just as well. But in order for our staff to make a decision on what we as council want them to do, we're up in the air. So how can our staff make a decision? So right now, I'm behind my staff member who says government road is next in line.
Good. Any other feedback from Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I do know that I've seen a schedule of upcoming budgets. Do we have Zion Line on 2027's current budget?
Right
No.
now, it's 2028.
2028. Okay, great, thank you.
Good. Any other council feedback? We have one suggesting a change. Councillor White, if you'd like to go, there's no one else.
Is there another recommendation coming forward from anyone, from any staff member? Or are we leaving it as only for government road?
CAO?
I think as it stands, maybe I'll just bring it back to the original recommendation to do government road. So the reason, as Councillor Trim noted, is the AADTs are somewhat higher on Zion Line. The conditions are generally in disrepair for both roads, among many other roads in our community. One of the constraints which led to the recommendation for government road is the financial amount of money we have, the $660,000. It aligns itself well with the length of road for government road, being asphalt. What you have before you, which Treasurer McDonald could share on the screen, this sheet of paper gives essentially three options, if you will, under costing hyphen. Zion Line, those are three options. And the reason why we were, in some sense, not recommending Zion Line is because the cost to do Zion Line, based on the current policies of council, namely the active transportation plan, Zion Line is intended to be an active transportation route, which means it's a widened road. And the costing for that widened road to comply, meet our active transportation plan would be around $1 million. So we don't have $1 million. So if we're going to do a road, and government road is being recommended at this point in time and remains. If council chooses, at their discretion, they could do a less widened road, which does not meet their active transportation plan, and it would cost $700,000 and would more or less fit in the budget. We could alter some other capital items. So that's kind of where the original recommendation came from. The question that we pose as staff to council is the active transportation plan is to some degree maybe an increased level of service. It's a need. I mean, it improves the quality of life of our residents, safety of our roads and the like. So in the 2028, and I'll just have I'll close out with this to the directors, in 2028 Zion Line at $1.1 million. Does that include the widening of the road?
That is correct.
That's correct. So, I mean, basically what is before council is this $660,000. We could do government road this year, and it's within the budget. We could do Zion Line at a reduced scope for $700,000, which would fit within the budget, or we postpone it to 2028 in the chart, the unfunded big capital list here that's unfunded and might change for 2028, which includes the widening of the road. So I think the deliberations on this projection and levels of service, it'll look at this active transportation plan a little bit closer and whether or not we want to increase levels of service and follow that. But that's kind of what's before council is the government road 660 fits in the budget, reduced scope of Zion Line from Foresters Falls to West Ross, you're in that $700,000 for asphalt as well. So that's where it stands. So our recommendation, to answer the original question, stands at government road. If I look at my director, that's kind of where we stand. Thanks.
Good question. Any comments as a result of the CAOs? And I will come to you, Councillor Trim, if there's no one else at this point in time. Yeah, Councillor Bell first, then Councillor Trim.
This is just a general comment, but I feel like at this point, widening of roads, the extra costs that are going to be associated with doing this year over year, because I know we have a number of roads. We talked about doing it on Grand Settlement Road. That got dialed back. That's no longer on the on the schedule now for the next few years. This is going to be a topic of conversation for the next group of council members and probably the council members after that. If the intent is to continue to increase that level of service on the roads, then we're going to have to decide that we're not doing the basics on other roads. So I feel like at this point in time, when we're looking at these 5-year projections and we can't afford anything moving forward, like, I don't know if we should be making a decision today based on an increased level of service that I'm assuming in a year or two, we're still going to be looking at scaling those decisions back to make sure that they fit within the budget. So from my perspective, I know both roads are in disrepair. We heard the delegation from Zion Line the other day. They make a bunch of good points looking at the average daily drivers for 469 versus 269. Just looking at this from like a general taxpayer perspective, there's 469 drivers on that road a day that are going to appreciate an update in the surface and not driving over a road that's in disrepair versus the 269 on Government Road. I'm happy to leave it up to the expertise of the individuals that do this on a daily basis. But I recognize that Zion Line obviously has more daily traffic. And honestly, the residents of the Zion Line probably don't care about the widened portion of the road. They just want to make sure that they can get to and from their houses on a daily basis without taking the oil pans out of their cars. So I just, whenever we talk about this increased scope of widening the road for active transportation, well, it basically doubles the cost of doing it in DST, right? I know that doesn't really give any solutions, but it's just, I don't want to be making decisions today based on something that we probably can't afford in a year or two, just looking into the next year or two of budgets of knowing that this is going to be an issue, affordability issue moving forward.
Good, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that one, and I'll go to Councillor Trim.
Yes, the comments I was going to make were made by Councillor Bell. I generally am opposed to increasing levels of service not increasing levels of service until we are doing well with the services we've committed to. And so I know that bicycle lanes and walking shoulders would be a benefit. I'm not saying that they wouldn't be. However, until we have all of our roads up to scratch, then I think that that's something we can't afford. However, having said that, I'm wondering if the director, Mr. Lane, could tell us how much, if his cost estimates includes the extra width that the last section of the Zion Line got, because I think we should try to accommodate farm machinery at the very least. So perhaps he could give us that information, maybe not today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Noted. Perfect. Any other discussion on this? Sorry? Yes, yes. Sorry, I was waiting for the CAO to throw that ball to Lane. So, good. We'll give it to Manager of Public Works.
Yes, if I can add, yes, both roads are in poor condition, as we're all aware. Why we're following policy as for the active transportation, that's why Zion Line did not fit in this year's budget, because within the allocation for roads. In talking to our public works staff, that Government Road is patched more often than Zion Line. With Zion Line, it's been on for the last 3-4 years. It has been selected, but talking to the road super, even today, I traveled both of them. Again, today's to ensure that projection was coming up. I can tell you that Government Road is in worse shape today with potholes as we patched than it is Zion Line. So I think originally, like, Zion Line needs to be done. I think it needs to be, but I think with the condition of Government Road, it needs to be done sooner than Zion Line. I've been back and forth. I was talking to Councillor Trim yesterday. I am back and forth. Like, we can do either one of them. Need both to be done, but I think at this point, I think my recommendation is to carry on with Government Road.
Good. Does that bring any other comments? Now, I'll just recognize one comment about 2028. Councillor Olmsted brought it up. When is Zion forecasted for in the 5-year plan? The challenge is 2027 isn't fully funded. So 2027 runs us into a deficit. 2028 runs us into another deficit. So resting on the fact that, oh yeah, don't worry, we don't have it scheduled. It is written in sand on the beach, and that's what our budget committee is going to have to look at in the coming months, because we're just pushing the problem out one more year. Good. Back to Manager of Public Works.
Yes, I have to add one thing. This was brought up. It's Councillor White brought up in one of the first or second meetings. Is also addition with, as you see in 2027, there is some third lifts or a single surf put on to our DST. For example, Bromley line, needs, it's right on the, it's very similar to what we did with, Rapid Road, thank you. It's very, like, Rapid Road was probably a year past this point. We did save it. We spent extra money making it good enough to be single surface over top. Bromley line has come to a point, maybe past this point. It's in there. There is the cost savings if we do a third lift versus doing the whole road at DST. There is, as is shown in on the slides, where that really should be done this year. But again, with the constraint, where we are picking a worse road over keeping one of our roads, bringing it back to good again. So next year is a challenge, like as Mayor Nicholson stated, that there is a 2027 is even a financial shortfall, even that at that, where Zion Line needs to be done also. So it is a challenge.
Thank you. This is good discussion and important for us to be doing this publicly, I think. So is there any other? Councillor Bell.
Sorry, but yeah, and just going back, looking at the previous presentation, these 5-year projections, the reason Zion Line isn't on for 2027 is because asphalt is also scheduled to go down between Fletcher and Powers Road next year as well. So we're spending that $660 this year, $737 next year on asphalt for Government Road. And then we've already had these discussions, but then it gets back to, should we just be doing the whole road in DST this year to open up the funding to resurface another road next year in DST, recognizing the life cycle of that? It is what it is with DST. Like, it's hard to believe that Government Road was done in 2016 and we're 2026 talking about it again for $660,000 project. But is that something that we should be considering instead of doing asphalt on the two portions over the next 2 years, do DST for the entire portion this year to open up funding to get Zion Line done within the next 2? Because they brought up the delegation brought up a great point, as you know, we're having issues with the traffic in Beachburg because trucks don't want to be traveling on Zion Line because of the condition of Zion Line. There's a fairly significant business, or a very significant business at the end of the Zion Line that brings in a lot of heavy equipment through both sides of Zion Line. The traffic that's seen with the agricultural equipment on Government Road is the same as the agricultural equipment that's driving on on the Zion line. Just again, looking at to what we can actually afford. Can we actually afford to put asphalt down the entire stretch of government road before we do anything with Zion line? That's, I brought out that presentation from the last budget, and I know we've already had these discussions, but we're making the decision now. So is that something that we should be considering instead?
Good, thank you for throwing all of this out into the middle of the discussion, but this is what a committee is for. You're supposed to be able to do these things. Sorry, Councillor, I'm gonna throw one thing out and then we'll come to Councillor Olmsted and then we'll do this. Is that we do have to make a decision today. We need to, it may not be the perfect decision. We have gathered the information, you've received information from the public. We've drilled into the staff's recommendation. We have a staff recommendation. But I'll come back to both Councillor Trim and Councillor Bell. If you want to put a motion on the floor to revisit the existing proposed budget, we will take a look at that. Good, Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, just an overarching comment, I guess, in that, number one, sorry, and I didn't see this on my desk earlier, but we do have a 5-year proposal in front of us for roads. First time I think I've ever seen that, so hats off to the input that went into it. And I think it's very important that as we go through an asset management plan and the input that goes into it and the expertise of the people that are inputting that information, that once we get it close, we have to stick to it. Otherwise, what the hell are we doing? Why even have an asset management plan? So I think it's very important that we're down that road now. We've got a great 5-year. Is it bang on? Who knows? I'm sure there's going to be a little bits, puts and takes, but I've heard as much from government road texts and phone calls to me as I did, probably more than Zion Line. So, and that's going to continue through the next bunch of councils, that everybody that lives on that road is going to come to us, and that's good. They're invested and they're interested. But I think at some point you've got to go, okay, here's the plan, and we're not really straying from it, other than if there's some extenuating circumstances that we have to stray from it. And again, it's one of the first times I've seen asphalt all over the page here. I've been on council, this is my 12th year, and I think I've only seen asphalt on a list, other than if it's in town, maybe once or twice. So it's great that we're getting to a point where we're actually seeing asphalt, which has to take place on these well-traveled roads versus DST. As Councillor Bell said, we're 8 years, 7 years in. I remember Zion Line, I think we were patching it the second year after we put DST on it. So we just can't go down the DST path on these well-traveled roads. So what I would propose is we stick to what they have in the plan for 2026. We look at 2027, review it, and see if there's any changes that can be made there. But again, at some point, we've got to go, this is the 5-year plan that we're going with, and barring a whole lot of issues, we have to stick by that. Because and again, it's not just roads we're dealing with, it's the entire friggin' township that we're trying to get into this asset management plan. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And this is perfect. Again, this is what committees are for. Okay, I'm going to turn that back to Councillor Trim and Councillor Bell. Both of you had made suggestions about changing the current. Is that something that you'd like to put on the floor?
Yes, I would like to move that this construction season we spend our funds on the section of the Zion Line that's been indicated, and just a little further to what Councillor Olmsted said, I do believe in planning, and I do believe that we should be sticking to our plans. However, when new information comes in, I think that it's appropriate to rethink the plan. And so the new information today was that the cost for the Zion Line included the
Active transportation.
active transportation part. Now, if we agree to eliminate that, which is what I propose, then then all of a sudden the plan changes. Then to me, it makes more sense to do the design line because of the traffic count and the age of the road and so on and so on. And so with that in mind, I'm going to move that we make that change.
Good, thank you. Do I have a
And I'm
second?
looking for a seconder, yes.
Do I have a seconder? And I see no seconder, so your motion is not recognized. Councillor Bell, would you like to move any of your suggestions?
No, I think I tend to agree with Councillor Olmsted. I just wanted to throw it out on the table just to see what other councillors thought, but in listening to what our Public Works Manager has to say, like, we're gonna make the wrong decision in a number of people's eyes. We're gonna make the right decision in some, so I tend to agree, our Public Works Manager, he's been considering this, he knows all the issues on these roads. We're gonna fit it into the budget, we're laying asphalt down, I think that's a good thing. Just recognizing we're gonna get some backlash from the members on Zion Line, so looking at this 5-year plan, it's a plan, and like Councillor Olmsted said, I think once we put it into motion, I think sticking to it is important, so it's good.
Instead of on. We're going to close discussion on this item, page 17, basically. Direction stands, as was recommended by staff, but I am going to propose that we give staff direction on a couple things when it comes to our committee. And the first one is, we need to re-examine active transportation and the impact it has on the level of service. In my opinion, I'm sharing Councillor Bell's thoughts. I think it's unaffordable. Councillor Trim brought it up. It's a level of service that we are not prepared. It's going to keep taking our main roads identified for active transportation off of the list because we don't have the funds to do them. So I think that's one thing that the Budget Committee should look at in the future. The second one is the three other points, sorry, at least the middle two, and I'll take committee input on the fourth one, but about the fire halls, about the extended life equipment of current assets, I think we make that a task for our Budget Committee and our discussion about a 5-year plan. How do we consider those comments in our discussions for our 5-year plan? And the fourth one about re-rolling our arenas, if you would like to have that included, we can add that, if there's anyone that wants to add that in. Okay, I don't see any, so we'll just take the first three as provided. Is any feedback from the committee on that direction to staff? No? And I don't know if there's any public watching, or we can pass this on to the members of Zion Line that came and did the delegation. I think that's exactly the type of public involvement that council needs. It made us go back and tear this apart and consider a whole bunch of different variables. And that's exactly what we want in a democracy, is the ability to have that interaction between public input and necessary decisions. I don't think there's ever going to be the correct decision. There's always going to be the decision that you have to take given the parameters you have at that moment in time. And we have to proceed. But the delegations, the public input is exactly what we need. Good? With that, we are concluding pages 1 through 28. I think there's another 30 pages to go, but maybe we're going to take a quick bio break and just 5 minutes, please, and then we'll come back. And welcome back to the Township of Whitewater Region's Budget Committee meeting, and we're going to continue. Now, if you're watching and looking for the regular council meeting that was supposed to start at 1 o'clock, we are going to start the regular council meeting as soon as we finish the Budget Committee meeting. The two are intertwined. We have a recommendation that we will be making at the conclusion of the Budget Committee for the council meeting, and it is the 2026 budget. Therefore, important, if not vital, for us to try to address today, if at all possible. So just be patient, please, and we'll continue our deliberations here at the committee level, and then we'll move into council. Excellent. And with that, we are going to turn the floor back to the CAO and the treasurer and continue on. I think we're at slide number 29.
Thank you. We're actually going to, for the CIO's question, we're going to pop back to slide 26 just for 1 second. Just to illustrate where the 1.6% comes from, with the total operating expenses of $9.35 million. So that's the total cost to operate the township, which includes the costs for the OPP and all other costs to operate, as well as our other internal costs of salaries, contracts, and things like that. So the amount, the balance to fund the levy is the $5.9 million. That's the operating levy. As you can see, the prior year was 5.77 million. So overall, the levy is increasing by 2.5%, less the expected growth, which has almost been finalized. It's a little higher than 0.9, but for calculation purposes, I left it that way. And then, so it equals about a 1.6% overall increase. I will note, and I think I mentioned this before, but I'll just put it out there for the public again. By taking the growth category out and showing it this way, it makes the percentage that we're dictating out to the public more accurate as to what they will actually see as an increase on their taxation. If I was to just say 2.5% in the 4.2, that's the levy, but it doesn't tie directly into what you actually see on your tax bill. By removing the growth portion from it and talking about the 1.6 and the 4.2 specifically, that's what your actual tax bill will see within plus or minus 0.5%. So that's the reason we use the capital or the expected growth portion in there to illustrate that. So the next part we move into is the capital and special projects portion of the budget. I've left the slides in here just to, again, illustrate our funding sources for capital. So there's the OCIF, which is for 2026 was $817,064. Of that, we split it due to the fact that there's water, wastewater assets and road assets, which is classified as our core infrastructure. That's why we get the funding, because it's a calculation-based funding. So $420,000, $135 is being allocated to the general capital budget, and then $396,929 is allocated between water and wastewater. Water gets about $118,000, if memory serves, and then wastewater gets about $240,000. The other side, the other funding we receive is the Canada Community Building Fund, which is CCBF. Others might remember it as the Canada Gas Tax funding, the provincial, or the federal funding, I should say. So $236,620, again, confirmed for 2026. That eligible funding breaks beyond just core infrastructure and allows for other infrastructure to be addressed, which is normally why we tie it to infrastructure such as recreation, fire systems, and then roads and wastewater too as well. So the last chunk of the funding sources is the actual taxation. So with the 4.2 that has been occurring year over year, right now that balance, once the 2026 budget is approved, will be $1.212 million in taxation towards capital. So we're pulling $887,000 from the prior 2 years, 3 years actually, and then $325,437 is what's coming for the 2026 budget. 1.04 million, or 004 million, sorry, is currently tied up in debenture costs out of our levy, and then we released as one debenture this year of $81,000, so that part is being tied into the upper budget, the 1.2, to create more capital working funds. So we've just added a little note here. The orange line is the constraint for affordability, the 3.4%. This chart originally talked about how every year we add 4.2% to the levy, And in order to try and achieve that goal of the $9 million required as stipulated in the asset management plan for the total current replacement value of all of our assets. You can see by the time we reach that line, we hit it in 2028, and we cap out at about $1.9 million, $1.9 million. So that's where that affordability threshold comes in. So the capital and special projects, one piece we did, I think it was presentation 3, is where we talked about whenever we started calculating for how to create the capital plan for the going forward for the future for the 5 years, was we had to have a place to start with, and that was more or less the pots of money that could be allocated to certain categories. So based on the actual assets that we have in the asset management plan, as well as staff input, it was determined that we put it as 50% for the road network, 5% for stormwater, 10% for buildings, 10% for machinery and equipment, 20% for vehicles, 5% for land improvements, which brings us to a total of 100%. So the first column you'll see past those percentages, that's the total capital funds, levy and grants. Total capital funds includes the debentures. So if we were to take the total capital money that we spend every year, which is the bottom number, 2.85 million, and break it down into each category. So there's 1.425 that's spent on roads, 142,000 for stormwater, buildings 285, machine equipment 285, vehicles 570, land improvements 142. Then we remove the portions that we've already from prior years committed that capital funding to through debentures. So when I say debenture per category, the 647,979, that is principal and interest payments that we are making this year for the road network. Same thing for machinery equipment. So there's $110,000 out of the overall levy that's going to pay debenture principal and interest payments. 141 for vehicles and equipment. There's a debenture slide I'll show later on that'll kind of illustrate this more. So what the leftover funding for 2026 is 777,136 for roads, 142,511 for stormwater, 285,023 for buildings, machinery equipment, 174,942, vehicles and equipment, 428,254, and then land improvements, 142,511. So you'll see on each of the slides that I present, again, no change from the prior, but just as a illustration to the public, it talks about a remaining and left in reserve. So anytime we don't use up this funding, it would be left and be pushed into reserve to be used in the future years if we don't reach the total use of the funding in that category. And what will happen is whenever we staff bring forward a reserve policy, we'll actually be talking about these amounts and then adding that chunk in as to creating the reserves to allocate these fundings appropriately. So the first project list is under the roads category. So Crawford Street is still on the list. The total cost of that project, the road portion, which is the surface itself, is $858,000. Funded out of the levy would be $27,135, and the remainder would be a debenture. The next one is Pine Road Park Road Culvert, $40,000, fully funded. Lacqua Bay Road Design, $50,000, fully funded. And then Government Road, which is Forsters Falls to Fletcher Road, as asphalt, $660,000. And per the prior discussion, there was no noted changes there. Mayor, do you want me to stop at the end of each of these categories, or would you like me to run through all categories and come back?
I'm good either way. Does council have a preference? Yes, Councillor Trim?
You left us with a task last time, Mr. Mayor, with respect to the percentage. I don't know when you want to talk about that. I want to talk about it, for sure. And so I'll leave it to your discretion.
Okay, just to recognize, we're going to bounce around. Let's get through all of these tables. And you've presented these to us 3 times now.
Yep.
So if you can go through and just articulate changes that you've made since the last presentation,
Okay.
that will probably allow us to go through with questions at the end more quickly.
Perfect. So the next slide is again, Crawford Street being done. This is the stormwater network. There is no change here from the prior presentation. The still funded amount is 142,511. So the remainder chunk goes to a debenture of 317,000. Buildings, again, no changes here from the prior presentations. So we're funding the furnace HVAC, the Cobb Arena compressor, the beam painting in the Cobb Arena, structure repairs in the 3 arenas for cement work, the Cobb Arena HVAC, and then the museum snow roller shed. So it leaves a remainder in that reserve fund of $523. Machinery and equipment, no changes again. $50,000 for RWIS CCTV, which goes to our road patrol system. Training equipment for the fire department for in-house CPR and first aid is $25,000. And then the breathing air compressor, which we got a grant for and purchased in 2025, was unfunded. So this is just to fund that last portion of $16,000. So it leaves $83,000 in the reserve at the end of 2026. Under vehicles, so looking at a tandem plow truck and a fire tanker. So there was a change here, just a clerical note that I made. So the total cost of the truck is $425,000. We don't have the money in that fund based on the current percentages to be able to finance both it and the fire tanker, which we need to finance as we have received the fire tanker now. So in order to do that, we'd only be able to fund $378,254 towards the tandem plow truck, and it would leave $446,746 as unfunded into the 2027 fiscal year, which through the capital plan that we've presented so far, we can fund in 2027 due to the way the equipment goes. And I've noted on, if you look at Schedule D of the actual capital projects, that's where all these are listed and where their funding is allocated. You'll notice that there's $46,000 that's left as unfunded, so that'll automatically be picked up and added into the 2027 budget. Land improvements, there was no change here based on the prior presentation. Leaves no money left in reserves after the play structure at the Cobb / Forsters Falls Park. And then this one, again, no changes because these have all been presented in prior years. This is just bringing it back to council's awareness that the projects are going on and where they're coming from reserves. So one of the only new project here is the Ross landfill monitoring well. That one's being fully funded from the waste reserve of $35,000. Our website upgrade 17, furnace HVAC is 50. The fire tanker, so over the last 3 years, we put money into reserve for the purchase of the fire tanker. So this is the year whenever we get to actually spend it, and we already have, $485,000. And then Westmeath Boat Launch rehab, $100,000, and the Cobb Arena, the ice plant electrical panel at $45,000, which was already a project in 2025, and is now just being shown here as where it's coming from reserve. And I will note that you'll notice that the last 2 projects actually came from our CCBF reserve. So in 2025, we allocated money from CCBF towards these projects. Them not being done, they're just being pulled out of that reserve this year, but that's just an illustration of where our CCBF money gets used. And any questions?
Excellent. Thank you, Treasurer. And with that, we'll go back to slide 34, which is what Councillor Schramm would like to ask a question on.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, at the end of our last budget discussion, you asked all of us to come back today with our thoughts on the percentage allocation. And so I've been thinking about it, and I would like to propose that instead of a 50% allocation to the road network, that it be 60%. Now, when I say that, what I'm implying is that the management staff will go back into the budget and find a way to reallocate that money. And that might be a virtually impossible task without coming back to get some decisions from us, some very difficult decisions from us, because there's only so much money. And in our last discussion about roads, I don't know if it was obvious to everybody, we're not giving our director, Lane Claroux, enough money to work on the roads and the streets and the sidewalks we have. If we don't give him enough money, he just can't do the job. That's all there is to it. And we can't get the money, we can't burden the taxpayers more. So something has to give. I know Councillor Olmsted alluded to this at our last discussion. So I don't know if it's a motion, Mr. Mayor, that is appropriate, but I just want you to have my answer to your direction last time. I propose 60% goes to roads. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Trim. I'm just going to clarify, because we are trying to have the 2026 budget approved for this year. You're talking about making changes into the future, not for 2026? Because it would necessitate taking the whole budget back to staff to rejig this and coming back to Budget Committee to talk about 2026.
Well, just, I know this is another example of us just always putting the problem forward. I didn't understand your request. I should have, but I didn't. I don't want the budget amount to raise. I just want the allocation to change. I don't know where I am on this now. I don't want to impose a whole bunch more work onto staff. That wasn't the idea. And I don't want to prolong our budget deliberations, but something has to happen here. We're not providing the services we're committed to because we're not giving our staff the money to do it. So I don't know what I would suggest, Mr. Mayor. I think I misunderstood your direction.
No, and thank you for the point. And it's just in terms of trying to match what we'd like to do with what we have to do. 2026 has already started. We're already starting to spend money in 2026. We want to lean in and do the 2026 portion of the budget. But I think we have to acknowledge that the prioritization of our capital funds isn't optimal. We have to figure out that part of it. Let's see if there's other discussion, and we'll come back to it. So, yes, Councillor White.
I'm not very good at math, so maybe Chris can answer this. What would be 10% if we went from 50 to 60%? What would that amount?
An additional 285,000.
Pardon?
An additional 200, see the bottom number, the total, 2.85 million?
Right?
Well, you'd be adding $285,000 more to the road network then.
So we would have to take out 285,000
Out
from
of the rest of the
somewhere else
budget.
in the budget.
That's right.
Okay.
You see the buildings and machinery that are at 10%? There's your number right there.
Councillor Moore?
Just wondering on what Councillor Trim just said, if somewhere in there, our discussion last meeting was increasing gravel road upgrades from 15 years to 10 years, if that could be included in that 10% increase, or is it already in this budget?
No, it's in operating, and we closed that out already. Now we'll put that on the back burner, we can come back to it at the end, but now it's not in capital.
Considering we were talking percentage change, I just wondered what happened to that discussion.
Yeah.
Improving our gravel roads, that's all.
Good. If Treasurer, if you can put a pin in that, we'll come back to it when we're done the capital piece. Good. Any other comments on the division of capital funds? Yeah, Councillor Moore.
I had one on, I lost my place now. Well, that helps. Slide 39, we're talking about a tandem plow truck. Just wondering then if there wasn't enough money to perhaps purchase this year, does it go on the next year, or are we still purchasing this year but with less money and be more debt?
So the design is that we have $378,000 of the 425. So it would be purchased in this year, as long as we take delivery in this year. That's hard to say. Sometimes we could take delivery technically in 2027 because of the length of to actually build the truck. But should we take delivery this year, there would be $46,000 that we don't have the funding for that would be then collected in 2027. it would remain unfunded, similar to how we did the breathing air compressor. We unfunded $16,000, so we didn't actually have that funds in 2025, and now we're refilling that void or that unfunded portion in 2026.
Okay, understand, thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Sorry, Councillor White, you're looking at me.
I'm just wondering if it says unfunded, so that means that we just didn't pay the bill? I'm not sure I understand that then.
So we pay the bill, so on a income statement side, or the actual revenue versus expenses side, we are incurring the expense, but we're not taking in the revenue to offset the budget for it for the year. So when I say unfunded, it technically becomes an expense that needs to be picked up in the next year. We need to make the revenue up to cover that expense. It's an effect on our overall working capital. So what happens is, in 1 year, we have this outstanding chunk that needs to automatically be associated and included into the next year's budget, 2027.
We borrowed from ourselves.
Exactly.
That's, okay.
Yeah. Good. Any other comments on this part? So I'm just going to come back to Councillor Trim's points then on the division of the capital funds. And I know it is a discussion that we need to have. And I, for one, am in favor of increasing the amount to roads. Roads is our #1 strategic priority. It's a key function. It's not the only one. It can't be the only thing we fund. But just on our experience we've had with the debate on Zion and Government Road, we know we don't set enough money aside for this. Maybe we need to change the scope, the width of the roads, all these other kind of factors. But bottom line, there's still not enough money to do the 130 kilometers of DST and 50 kilometers of asphalt that we have in the township. However, I am loath to make these changes today on 2026 budget. That means that, as an example, the point Councillor Moore just said, we'd be taking money out of the vehicle allocation, either unfunding it or reallocating it from somewhere else. We'd be pushing it back to staff to go back, probably take at least a week, if not more. The CAO was like, but it would take time for them to go back and rejig it. That's my thought on it, but this is a committee, and so we need to come up with a consensus on it. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, just my understanding on it was, these are the percentages that we have laid out for this year, but going along with the 5-year projections, that's how we can manipulate this moving forward. So I think I was comfortable with these percentages the way it was laid out in the previous presentations, knowing that these discussions are moving forward as it pertains to that 5-year projection and how we make that, how we want to make this look moving forward. So I'm comfortable with the percentages as they're laid out, and how it's been presented to us before, knowing that these are up for discussion moving forward.
Other feedback? I'll go to the treasurer.
Yeah, I was just going to make one note that the other side too is, whenever we present and bring forward the 2026 asset management plan, it's going to have a financing schedule in it for the next 10 years. So the budget committee is going to have a lot of input into that. So that's where the new amounts will be set out. It may not be a straight 50%. It might look like 54%, just based on the number of assets and how the funding works in order to maintain a set level of service. Because that's the goal of the asset management plan, is supposed to, council dictates the level of service that wants to be achieved and the assets that want to be included in that asset management plan. Level of service up, level of service down. That was where that sits, and then they take that and they come back with the funding method of how to fund it, because we can't have unfunded assets and still maintain a level of service, because you're not. So they have to come back to that number. So then whenever they come back, that's where, this is our first attempt without the finalized document of putting it, but whenever we come into 2026 and they present that capital plan, it has to fund everything, so it's going to show a breakdown, and here's the deficits in such categories and the downfalls of assets, and then things will tie from there as to the percentages. So this is our first attempt at it from a staff level. The consultant's input will make that number change again. Even if we were to change it to 60% now, it could technically change again to, say, 75%, just throwing it out there, of a number that the consultant recommends in order to maintain whatever asset is deemed as the most important.
Now it's turned green. Sorry, I went from flashing red to green. I wrecked the clerk's microphone. Okay, thank you, Treasurer. Any other comments with respect to Councillor Trim's proposal? Because I will highlight one other thing. Is that when you go into the other tables that are listed in here, the land improvements, the vehicles, the equipment, the buildings, if you were to lean forward, like if you're of the opinion, oh, I think we should go roads to 60% and cut these other ones, but maybe we don't have time to do that for 2026, you could suggest that some of these projects not be done this year, and just keep that money in a reserve in that category pending a future decision. That is one way to look at it, to meet your intent without having to rejig everything. So you could put a pause on something if that was something you wanted to do. And again, it may not be a decision that we need to take today, but we could come back to. Good? So with that, Councillor Trim, what's your thought? Are you okay with an approach of 2027 for reallocation of the percentages?
Yes, that is a very good compromise. And I'm just thinking, just off the top of my head, playground equipment. That gets us very close to the 10%. It's a good way, halfway to the 10%. I'm not saying it's not important. All of this stuff is important. The staff spent a lot of time on this, and every single one is important. But we got to get some kind of priority going here. And we've got to get more money to roads, because everybody needs roads. And I'm just wondering if, I don't know the situation here in Cobham that well, but school has playground equipment. Maybe in Westmeath, the kids play in the schoolyard on the equipment. And so Foresters Falls is a different situation, I understand. But we got to do something differently. And so that's a wonderful suggestion, Mr. Mayor. It seems like a good compromise. So thank you for that.
Good. Is there any other feedback from anyone else on any of these projects listed? So the recommendation I throw to staff on this is that as part of our future budget committee meetings, we will examine the reallocation, even if it is temporary to a future AMP that could come higher. I think it's worthwhile us going through the exercise. And if there are projects that may be impacted by a change in percentage allocation, maybe we can put those up as potential discussion points at a future budget committee meeting. Is that fair, CAO?
Yeah, I think it's noted, and I mean, the challenge we're having is that there's the capital investment that we're making is not enough to support our assets, period. So at some point, we have to decide what is our priority, what are our priority areas, and we need to move forward with that. So the budget committee could deliberate on that moving forward, and including the reallocation and maybe the reprioritization of projects for 2026. I think the strategy makes sense moving forward. Let's adopt and then consider it in the next couple of months. Thanks.
It's good, fair approach. The only other point I'll make for those people that might be watching is the Lacroix Bay road design. And please, Manager Cleroux, if I've got this wrong, but the reason we need to have that significant investment in that road design is because of the stormwater underneath it. So it has stormwater systems underneath it, and therefore it needs an engineering component. Is that correct? Am I hitting that on the?
That's correct. That's part of it. There's also, it is an urban section, so there's sidewalks and gutters and the whole, how it fits in design-wise. It's not like a rural section that we can do in-house.
Good, so again, just an important, some of the roads in our communities have got these requirements that exceed the typical rural design requirements. Good, yeah, Councillor White?
Lacqua Bay Road, isn't that the one that comes off of Gore?
And pause,
Yeah, but doesn't it, and it goes all the way down and,
down to Greenway.
oh, is that Greenway they were?
It goes down to Greenway, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's through the pause.
No, I think the 50,000 is specifically for the urban component, which is within La Paz. Is
That's
that
correct.
correct? Yeah. Right. Good. All right, well, keep moving then. Capital projections, and again, please, Treasurer, just highlight what you think are the changes or issues that you need to raise publicly.
Will do. So yeah, capital projections. So the first one I roll into is debentures and debt. We kind of did a little bit of a reallocation here of the slides. The only reason we bring this forward is because I always want to show what the debenture is, and because there is a debenture on the books that will be added because we're doing Crawford Street, I wanted to note this. So currently, the $1,004,000 for our total payment for the taxation is listed there, and those are the debentures that we currently have on the books. You'll see that in 2026 is the last year for two of them, so there's $100,000 worth of technically debenture payment room that will be recouped by the township, which will roll into the new debenture, for lack of a better term, in the 2027 for the debenture on Crawford Street. This is a slide to show our total debentures, and the only reason I show this here, because it shows water and wastewater as well, is to the next slide for our estimated annual payment limit. So I did some quick math based on what the project that we're looking at for Crawford. At this point in time, the current rate, if we did 20 years, which is what the water wastewater study originally planned as, so I'm using those kind of same pieces so that anybody looking between the documents has a similar yearing. So right now, amortization is 4.52% is on the loan value. So you can see here, it'd be one of the highest loans shy of the Cobden-Haley water treatment plant. However, the rates have gone up and gone down a lot recently. So by the time we actually close this debenture, which would be early 2027, hard to predict what the rates will be then, but likely not higher than what we're currently projecting. So the total annual payment, including the water and wastewater portion, would be $145,182, because the total debenture is around $1.92 million to fund that project. So then the total interest over the term of the loan, because I always want to stipulate this out there for the public side, it looks at about $1 million of added interest over the 20 years. So the next thing under the projection side, we flow into assumptions. So in doing the assumptions, then this is to create the operating capital or operating projection for 5 years, as well as tie into the capital side to show that 3.4% and where our affordability factors come in. So our assumptions is 2%. The increased capital levy to consider at the 4.2% until the affordability limit is reached, and then 1% thereafter to maintain fund. That was a stipulation from the mayor's side after whenever we reached that 3.4%. Assessment growth of 1%, median income growth at 1%, county levy increase capped around projected at 4.5%, and then the education levy, which at 0%, which is what has been traditionally its rate increase over the last 5 years. So the likelihood of it actually changing is unlikely at this point in time, just based on just history. So the capital and operating 2027 to 2030 shows operating revenue more or less stays the same due to the fact that things go up and things go down in different categories, but the net difference is normally the same. Operating expenses, they were increasing based on those assumptions. So you see $9.4 million for 2027, 9.5 for 2028, 9.7, 29, and then 9.8 for 2030. So then it creates the operating levy required and the capital levy required. So you'll see the total levy is the second from the bottom row. So $8.7 million is what 2027 would be, 2028 would be 9.143, 9.378 for 2029, and 2030 would be 9.618. So we reached the 3.4% affordability factor in 2028, and then with that 1%, and then the just general CPI needed growth or increase required for the operating brings us to 3.44 for 29 and 3.48 for 2030. So that's bare bone increases, but no substantial increases, where all we're doing is maintaining levels of service at that point in time. So on those 5-year budget forecasts and awareness, I'll mention to you to refer to the documents that was provided to you. So there was an operating document, as well as our capital list, the water, and then the wastewater. And it all includes the 5-year budget forecast. It's this big one that everybody has. So it goes through, again, it's unfunded, because due to the lack of overall funds and the allocation, as Councillor Trim had noted, which can change. That's where that part, staff made a list of projects, but in order to actually fund them, the priorities need to be set by council. So our overall constraints, limited revenue generated by the 3.4 affordability threshold, overall increasing replacement values of assets, our core infrastructure, and our supplemental stuff that is required to maintain, but it's not the actual infrastructure. Deteriorating overall asset conditions as the years progress. Before things can be replaced, they deteriorate to such a point that they can't be renewed. They have to be replaced, and that's one of the constraints. The manager mentioned it already about Brumley Line being one of such roads where it deteriorates too fast that it can't be renewed. It has to be fully replaced. Increasing levels of service expectations. So that kind of ties into the active transportation piece, where the wider road is one of the expectations, and then to tie into that. And then the other piece is the clear direction from the council's strategic direction to prioritize infrastructure investment in core asset renewal rather than all assets, understand current and future needs, and provide resolutions on key facilities. And we say facilities, we don't just mean arenas. There's fire halls, there's public works garages. It's all facilities as a whole. And then understand resident expected levels of service and their delivery. I brought this slide back in again just to show where we were talking about that invisible glass ceiling, as you might say, of where 3.4% comes in, and where we start pushing past that with capital growth. So we cap out around $1.8, $1.9 million of overall taxation, which can be funded towards capital. So as soon as we hit that top end threshold, it would then be allocated based on the percentages, and that would be it for the future if we wanted to hold to that 3.4. So next steps, so it's continue the development of the 10-year capital plan based on the funding and the 2026 asset management plan with the budget committee. Finalize the asset management plan with the support of Dillon Consultant. Examine policies to guide financial decisions and infrastructure. So the ones that staff have noted so far is amend the reserve policy, the tangible capital asset policy, and the surplus equipment disposal policy, and then adopt 2 new policies. Those are just the main ones noted, is debenture policy and investment policy. I can give a quick thing. The reserve policy is looking to create we currently have one, but it doesn't stipulate what amounts should be in reserves. So it would be to create that piece of what the municipality is comfortable in having in reserve to plan for emergencies or plan for future projects. Tangible capital asset is the length of time we actually hold on to an asset before we end its service life, its useful life, and amortize it down over the period. And then the surplus equipment disposal policy would be looking to have something in that policy of what happens more dictates what happens with the revenue that's received whenever we sell such assets. Where it's dictated back. The debenture policy would be what can actually be eligible for a debenture, where right now we have debentures for equipment, we have debentures for a road of all sorts, we have debentures so it would stipulate what value qualifies and what asset actually qualifies for a debenture, and which ones council has to always fund 100% via taxation. It would make it ineligible for a debenture, just due to its life expectancy. and which ties in again to the TCA policy, the tangible capital asset. And the last one is investment policy. And this was one that I added to the list due to the fact that in the years whenever we don't use said money for a certain capital asset, do we invest that money in a certain way and make money on our money? That's the goal of this policy, is to try and maximize the taxpayer's dollar. Right now, we're not in a situation where we can do this, but it'd be good to have it ahead of time to kind of dictate if we start to build reserve funds and balances into the future, but they're not needed for, say, 5 years, that we start looking at an investment portion of that in order to use it. Same thing with and what is an eligible investment. Any questions?
Thank you, Treasurer. Is there any questions or comments from council on this section? Yeah, Councillor White.
Out of curiosity, I know you have an investment policy, but can we invest our taxpayers' money what if we lose it all?
So there's a mandated, what we're allowed to actually invest in, so there's a qualified list, and we can't invest in the stock market. It's all secured. It's just the term of said security, as in whether we go a certain level, and whether then if cash flows were fall below a certain level, do we borrow in between that point in time? Like it's what stipulates that of how long do we have to have a projection for cash flows at X dollars, and how much can we put forward, and like what's our level of risk, more or less, is what it stipulates.
Thank you.
Right, so if we've got $1 million in our working capital and it sits there earning on a checking account, we could be using it to make more money for future purposes. But there's a bunch of guidelines that have to be established for that. Yeah, look at Councillor Olmsted, his eyes just got really big. Okay. 4.2% on cash. Yeah. But the problem is that we're not in a position now. We're still trying to figure out how to fund a road. Once we get out of the woods, we can start to really make some sound decisions financially. Is there any other comments on this section, Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, just back, I know it's semantics, but just on slide 47, I know you went through that pretty quickly, and I saw a lot of confusing looks on it. Just a couple of changes to the titles, if you would, and I think it just going forward to clear up some understanding of the slide.
Mm-hmm.
So just down at the bottom there are debt charges. Do you mind calling that current debt charges or current debt?
Yep.
And then on estimated ARL, can we term that estimated ARL remaining?
Yep.
So just so council understands that the debt charges, so that 1.5 million is what our current payments are, including principal and interest. And so it means that we have $1.69 million remaining that we could, in payments that we could take on. So, and if, I don't know, I don't want to add an extra column, but basically we're paying about 12.5% of our, of the 25%. So we're paying about half the limit that we're allowed right now. So it means we have a lot of room, not that you want to go out on a spending spree, but we're in good shape on this particular slide. But I think I just did it clarify, if we just change those descriptions a little bit at the bottom.
Noted.
There's a lot of numbers on that page, so it kind of gets lost.
Noted. The other thing I will note too is that this is based on the ministry's request, and that's why, like, you'll see total revenue, SLC 10.9 line. That's the actual code that comes off their page, and that's where I pulled this originally from. We've received this through the FIR every year. 25% is where they set it as of the net revenues less all their grants. A lot of local municipalities who are bringing in their debt policies also put in a new limit, not the 25%. I've seen 15%, I've seen 20%, kind of goes between the two, because the idea is that you leave that either 5% or that last 10% for emergency purposes. So it's not on just a general project that you're doing, say, an arena, that you're able to borrow the money and have that repayment limit, that you top out your debenture limit. So like some other municipalities can go to the point where they've maxed out their debenture limit, then get an emergency project that they have no way to fund. You have to get special permission from the ministry in order to go over this limit, and it puts a lot of constraints on it, and then it also affects the overall financial stability of the municipality. So that's why a lot of municipalities put in their own limit lower to leave a limit opening. And the other piece I didn't speak about, and I should have, is this is the annual repayment limit. So it's the payment on the loan. It's not the total amount we can borrow. So whenever it says 1.69 million, if we were to say 20 years of a debenture, I'm gonna do some rough math here in my head, about say 4.5%, I think that worked out to be 10 or 15 or 18 million dollars, I think, but don't quote me. But that's like, we could borrow at said amount of dollars. That's the total amount that we have to pay every year, is the 1.69 million. So that's our payment every year. Like all of the ventures we have right now, well, actually, I'll go back up one. Right now, we have $13 million on the books, and we pay 1.5 towards that. So that $13 million equates to our ARL of having a 1.5 million. But there's a lot of different rates in there. So if we were to do that again, more or less it's double again. So yeah, it'd be about $15 million potentially that we could borrow, and then they would top out our limit at the 25% category. So that's our room at this point in time. The only thing I stipulate is I'm using that number, but some of these debentures are 10-year debentures, so the repayment amount is higher. Some of them are 30-year debentures, so like a lot of factors come into it. And I can bring that back to council whenever I do the debenture policy of saying what that limit equals and how much money we could borrow, just as an information for council, but in a future date.
Government, like banks, seem like they want you in debt. And in fact, part of that's true because when we apply for grants, it's important that you show that you more or less need the grant. So if you don't have any, like if you don't have the $1.5 million in debt charges, you're probably not going to acquire some grants, right? Because they're saying you can pay for it yourself. So it's a game.
Yep, exactly.
Good. Any other questions on this one? Yeah, Councillor Trim.
Yes, just quickly on page 25, I guess, slide 50, the last bullet at the bottom, clear direction from council to staff. And I think that's a reminder for me from now on, because we gave direction to staff, and I guess it was clear, about active transportation. And I don't know what I was thinking. We can't afford active transportation. So we've got to be careful about what we ask council, ask staff to do. I've got to be very, very careful. So.
Just to be clear, because I heard some murmurings, I think that was the previous term that gave the direction of the active transportation. Councillor Tabbert, you're off. Councillor Trim, you're off. Councillor Bell, you weren't here for it. But it is, you make the point, it's valid. We have to put a lens of affordability on each decision that we take. There is no easy decision where somebody else is just going to pay for it in the future. Good. Councillor Trim, sorry.
Yes, I know I wasn't here, but I was being kind, because I probably have made those decisions in the past, so.
Good. Any other comments? Okay, I just have a couple on this one, and I apologize, but just to set the framework going forward. Slide 49, when we talk about capital and operating, and this is really the operating portion. This is a wonderful slide. The numbers all match up and balance beautifully, but we are constraining the operating for the next 5 years. We have squeezed the operating to basically fall behind a little bit every year. Yes, it's CPI indexed. Yes, there's a little 1% growth, but we're talking about someone comes to us and says, hey, can we do a large item pickup for, there's no money. Like there's no room. And we've done that on purpose and put all of the taxes that we raise are going into capital. So we may get through the capital portion of the discussion for the 5-year plan, But at the end of that, we have a responsibility to go back and say, is this really realistic for operating? Or are there other things we need to consider for operating? So staff have put the work into this, but the implications are, we've really squeezed the operating. Fair? Yeah, Councillor Trim?
Yes, and that translates into maintenance. And I don't want to exaggerate here, but we seem to have a default way of making decisions. We squeeze operating so that we're not doing maintenance, and then an asset fails, and then our decision is made. We can't replace the asset, so it's failed, so it's gone. And then nobody can be mad at us. I think the better strategy would be to get rid of the asset and stop paying maintenance, and then we have more money for capital.
Yeah. Or operating in some cases. Good, okay, I just framed that, and I know CAO is like, oh, good, he's realizing this. Okay, good. The other comment I'll make is just on the 5-year forecast. So this beautiful document that the treasurer put a lot of effort into is a very valuable one to take a look at. But there is good news in it. I think, and treasurer, please correct me, but the last page, the one that talks about water and wastewater, it does balance.
It does, because the actual amounts that go forward, all the projects that have been listed in there are based on the water wastewater study. Again, that's what we're going to be going for the asset management plan for all other assets. They had to create a financing plan that makes it finance our assets, and that's what Watson has done in that part. I've done a few little tweaks to it, but otherwise, that's why it balances out, because that's why water will see 5% increase for the next 10 years. That's why wastewater will see an increase of 3% for the next 2, then down, 3%, then down to 2%, 4%, then down to 3%, then down to 2%. And they staggered that in as to the projects, because we listed the main projects that need to be done, inflated them up, then put them into the year that they need to be paid for, and that's how that document came to exist.
So good news, we do have the work done on water and wastewater. And we know that's been, a result of the circumstances that we're working through with wastewater right now, but we do have it done. We know we can do it. We've done it for 2 very complicated asset classes. We just have the remainder now to do. And that's what I think our budget committee is going to really bite off in the coming months. Good. If there's no other comments, then we'll keep going on. If you can do a quick summary of the slides as you go through, please.
Will do. So this slide is not changed from prior, because there is no change in the actual overall rate, still at the 5.8. So estimated effect on taxes. So for $100,000 assessment, you'd be looking at an increase of $44.71. Median single family detached, 179. I realized I should have updated this slide to the 182. My mistake. To match what the affordability side said, but so it's an increase of $80.04. And then we'll flow into water and wastewater.
Oh, sorry, just pause there for a second. And I'm doomsday today, so I'm not feeling glass half full. That $1,473 that we're talking about lower tier taxation on our $170,000 house, that only represents 47% of the property tax we collect from that house. Because that's only the lower tier portion. So we're asking the owner of that $170,000 home? Okay, so please correct the numbers, but make the point, please.
Sorry, yes, not 47, it would be the 47 plus the 9, because policing is included in this. Yep, sorry. You got it.
56%. But you can see the affordability piece. That $179,000 home is going to be paying essentially double that, $3,000, plus water, plus wastewater, plus waste pickup, plus recycling if they've got a small business there. Good? Keep going, please.
Thank you. So I'm going to water wastewater. When did you want to bring back the Councillor Moore's comment about gravel? Did you want to still do it within this portion, or do you want me to wait till the end?
Let's get this PowerPoint done, please.
Will do. So water, wastewater. So here's the pieces with the water. So water is 5%, wastewater increase is 4%. And this is actually the slide I was trying to come from memory, so for the rates. So we did our new water wastewater study in 2026, or 2025, sorry. And it presented from 2026 onward. So we're matching the rate studies for both, 4% for wastewater, and then 5% for water. And you'll see projected out for the next 10 years, from 2027 to 2034, is 5% annually for water, and then we would recommend the exact same thing. And then for wastewater, it's 4%. I believe that goes to 2027, then it turns to 3% from 28, 29, and then 2030 to 2034 is 2%. And we would aim to match that same amount going forward, because the assets are funded and financed, as long as capital projects and things like that hold within the inflated values that have been set out. This is just a quick slide to show what debentures are currently on the books. So in water and wastewater, our 2026 total payment is $525,000. So of the money that we collect from the residents for all these systems, we pay $525,000 of that back to, in this instance, the province for the debentures that we've taken out. Because the total ending balance is a little over $7 million. So the water rates for 2026, effective January 1 would be $1,268.96, total increase of $60.43, billing change of $10.07, and a monthly change of $5.04. Then small commercial, medium commercial, all have seen the same 5% increase. The newest category in here, which was proposed by the Watson study for the 2026 year, is the high commercial tier 2, which would account for $12,689.57 annually. These are the projects that are projected for 2026. There's no changes here from the original presentation. The debenture would go to the Crawford Street. Annual payment around $56,000 on the water side. Water meters would be installed, fully funded through OSIF, based on last year's 2025's contribution from OSIF, as well as this current year. Beachbrook Water Main, fully funded from our reserves. And then the Cobham Water Treatment Plant would receive one thing of $20,000, and then the leak detector and frequency locator under the lines would be $12,515,000. Those are all user fee financed. Wastewater, they would see the 4% increase, so it goes from 1958.78 to 2037.13, so it's a total increase for the annually of $78.35. Billing is $13.06. When I say billing, that's every 2 months. And then monthly change is $6.53. And again, tier 2 is the recommendation from Watson's through the consultant rate study, is $20,371.31 for the annual cost. There's only one project that's looked at for the wastewater treatment plant at this point in time. It's the centrifuge pump, a replacement cost of $58,500, and it's financed through user fees for the year. So here's the combined cost. So this is resident Cobden specific. Residential will be $3,306.09, so a total increase of $138.78, or billing increase of $23.13. And then high commercial would be a total cost of tier 2 would be a cost of $33,060.88, or a billing increase of $4,454.18. So this is a slide that the mayor was kind of noting to before. So this one is based off $182,000 assessment. So you'll see the first column is municipal and tax, includes municipal, county, and tax portions. So it's $2,621.88 is for 2026, increase of $134.40 over 2025. Monthly change of $11.20, and this is where the 3.23 is where we're currently sitting. I will note this does not include the garbage charge. This is taxation-based, taxation, water, and wastewater is only things noted here. So then the municipal, county, taxation, and water, so our Beachburg and Hayleaf properties would look at a bill total for the year if their assessment is $182,000 of $3,890.84, increase of $194.83. So they're sitting about a 5% affordability factor. And then the last one would be our Cobden residents, again, $182,000 property, be looking about $5,927.97, so it's a total increase of $273.18. And then the affordability is sitting at 7.52. And then my next slide is questions, so before that.
Good. Questions on water, wastewater from council? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. The high commercial tier 2, sorry, on 61, what, you go from 3,900 to 20,000? What is that? I'm confused.
So everybody used to be under high commercial, which was 2 times the residential rate. Through the Watson study, there was certain businesses that were noted that use substantially more water than just 2 times what a regular residential unit uses. So this new rate was proposed to be implemented into this budget and would be passed through this council and the council, when it actually comes to council, through the user fee bylaw, to be 10 times the rate. So whenever I say 2025, that's why both amounts are the same. So if you're on slide 63, for example, both in 2025, I have both the commercials, tier 1 and tier 2 is the same amount, the $6,335.80. 2026 rate sees the tier 1 just get its standard increase of about 4.5%. The tier 2 actually implements the 10 times rate of the 10 times the residential rate. So you'll notice the residential rate for the year is 3,306. So 10 times that is the 33,060.88. So it affects, stipulated through the, whenever the report was approved, the areas are arenas. So part of it affects the municipality itself. Our 2 arenas fall into this category, as well as 2 business categories at this point in time are tied into this amount. One here in Cobden and then one in Beachburg at this point in time. And those are the categories that fall in. Other major businesses are on meters, and then that's where the commercial meters are put in, so that whenever we install those meters come 2027, hopefully, once we have the data received, we can start implementing based on the actual usage they have rather than estimates based on the consultant's work. So this is kind of the stepping stone to that next step of implementing those meters, because there's certain businesses that use that substantial amount of water.
Thank you.
Any other questions on water, wastewater? Yeah, Councillor Moore.
Just in keeping with that same chart on 63, the one that's there, on this list, what will be metered this year? Will it be small commercial, medium commercial, high? What about the multi-residential? Will it be going metered?
No, so at this point in time,
Just commercial?
Just commercial, yep.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Good. The only point I'll make is that when you take a look at that wonderful chart that talks about 5% if you're on water and 7.52% affordability for those that are on, thank you, on water and wastewater. We're continuing to work both of these cases through advocacy. We have another delegation with the Ministry of Infrastructure. I think this will be my 7th on the topic of water and wastewater. They're continuing to receive our delegation, so that is a positive note. We're working with FCM and AMO, LAS, so that we're not just putting these figures out and saying, oh, gosh, just live with it. We are doing everything within our power to pull whatever lever is out there to try to provide some relief. And as soon as we know more information, we'll be able to share it. Good. Okay. At that point, let's go back to Councillor Moore's question. Let's talk about gravel for a moment. And I think what we had in a previous committee meeting was a point that was included in a la carte option.
That's correct.
To increase the number of kilometers that we redo of gravel roads each year. Right now, the program is 10. Could we go higher than 10 kilometers in a year? What would that cost? So Treasurer, can I hand the floor over to you and just take that?
Sure. So the original a la carte piece noted it was $60,000 in order to bring it from the current cycle time of 15 years down to back to the 10-year period. $60,000 equals a 0.77% increase to our overall budget. So in order to implement that, so the 5.8% would effectively become 6.57. Should that be implemented as one lump sum into the year or some other variation of that? That would be the way to bring the program back to the 10-year recirculation back to for gravel roads.
I'm in full agreement with that. The last couple of, as I said previously, the last couple of rainstorms we've had, like, we're getting a lot of complaints because the road's turning into soup, and we can't do anything with it as long as it stays soup. So if we could initiate this program today to start doing more roads with fresh gravel, we should alleviate some of that soupness and unable to even grade at that point. So if what Councillor Trim stated before about increasing our money for our roads, that this would be a good place to start.
Any other comments from anyone else? So I'm not in disagreement with what you're saying, Councillor Moore. I hesitate to increase taxation to achieve it. Treasurer, CAO, could you offer other ways that funding could be found, or what considerations council could have if we wanted to reprioritize funds into gravel? And from a council perspective, if you're thinking of a lower priority item that we've already discussed, you could bring it forward as well.
Yeah, I'm just, like, I'm trying to process whether or not we increase the levy for the purposes of gravel roads, when we know very well, there's not only gravel roads, there's DST roads, and there's asphalt roads, and this whole complexity. Would it benefit the replacement of assets if we increase to the 7%, specifically for capital or gravel roads? I mean, certainly we'd get ahead, but I don't think we're that much further ahead. So aside from just that note, can we reprioritize operating expenses? At this stage, I mean, we'd have to do some more investigation, but the answer is really no. I was just messaging our manager, just because we're talking water meters, we're talking Beachburg water main. We have a water project underway in Beachburg. We have Crawford. We have gravel road program. We have government road. Like, that alone for the department is a lot of work. I mean, that's a lot of work. And the success, I mean, the human resources apply to that. I'm not sure, like, I am confident that we'll probably achieve it, but it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of time, a lot of commitment. So, I mean, if we keep doing more work, how do we apply the human resources needed to support that work? So I'm having a hard time just processing and figuring out what would be the best approach, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd pass it over to my treasurer or manager or any other managers to provide additional input, by all means.
Yeah, I would just echo the CAO's point of it'd be hard to integrate it into the current budget to not have an increase associated to it. One of the only things that we had kind of looked at from a management standpoint is potentially phasing it in over years instead of going right from adding the full $60,000 in 1 year to going, say, $20,000 per year or something like that, instead of seeing as big of an increase to the overall budget. It still would be a very hard amount to integrate into the budget because we have the operating budget to the most point, I would say, is bare bones. Meets the level of service. You start trying to pull out of some other area to fund this one to a higher level, you're going to see a decreased level of service that council would have to approve in some other category. Whether it be within the road budget, that something else gets adjusted to adjust more to the gravel roads program, or whether it's another budget line item. Right now, we're able to meet the current levels of service. Any changes to decrease those areas to fund this would see a decrease in those levels of service in order to more or less increase this level of service currently.
If I could, through you, the mayor, is not to postpone the discussion of increasing tax levy. I think we're from my perspective, we're at a point where I think the budget as presented today at the 5.8% is generally palatable by council. Perhaps we just leave it with staff to analyze the 30,000 is what you mentioned? $20,000 as part of our deliberations with the budget committee, with the projections, other priorities, and all of these other things. And if there's a decision to increase to that $20,000, we could do so as part of our tax rate implementation. Not the best approach, but it is a mechanism by which we could look at that. And then also maybe we look at, perhaps it's reprioritizing other projects, I'm not sure. But just so we could keep the progress of the budget discussion moving forward. But if that's acceptable to yourself, Mayor, and through the mover, that'd be great.
Councilor Moore?
And just a comment on that, and I understand what you're saying, but with the current rate of graveling roads every 15 years, what happens to inflation and how much gravel are we losing because we haven't increased the rate of pay per se into that GL account? And we're going backwards, not forwards. So in keeping with what Councillor Trim suggested, that we add more money to the roads budget, I think this should take part of that conversation when it comes up at next budget. Okay, thank you.
So I'll just add to that before we throw it back to staff or any other member of council, I think the approach is that gravel, we have to recognize gravel as a unique item. Although it's classified as an operating expense, I think from a council directive, from a level of service perspective, we need to consider it a capital asset. I know that's going to mess with the treasurer's charts. I'm sure you'll figure out a way to, but I think we put it on the agenda for the budget committee to consider as part of the 5-year plan. We can explore to see if there might be a reprioritization. I like the idea of phasing something in, but I don't think, I'm not prepared to increase the budget at this point in time. I don't know if there's any appetite for council to consider that. None? Okay, good. Is there anybody who wants to make a comment to that before I open it up to staff? Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, I completely in agreement with you, Mayor. And the other issue is weather. We can't control weather. I'm looking here, it's +3 outside. It's January 14th. I think it's the 14th. And it's +3 outside. Yesterday it was +4. And we've had probably 10 thaw, freeze cycles. My laneway's the same thing. It's a mess. And I've got a good laneway. So sometimes no matter how much material you throw at it, it's just the weather doesn't cooperate. So the surface is terrible. But I'm in agreement. I don't think we touched the budget. Thank you.
Other members of council before I open up to staff? I saw Manager of Public Works.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Olmsted. The one, I think it's on our topic, because last fall we had a more of a unique situation, and we're not the only township. Every township around had the same social media posts as we did. We got rain, then it froze, and it was very tough challenge. Our staff put in a lot of overtime and a lot of weekend work to try to get the roads half decent, gravel roads, before freeze up, and I thank him for that. The one item that we've talked as staff internally is with gravel roads, how it's done. It's estimated how much tonnage we need per road, and it's added up within our budget. One thing I would suggest, and I've talked to Charge about this, is any surplus, if you surplus from a year, and for example, like this year, there is a surplus in 2025, there was surplus because we didn't do the entire road network that we were going through, that went into a reserve that we could pull from the following year. So for example, if we used, instead of previous years, it would just go into working funds at the end of the year in a general surplus. If we pull it out and put it into a fund that, for example, if there's extra 20,000 from 2025, I could bring a report back, and if we can do one more road with that money, I know, the one thing we were trying to do better is, could we do gravel road tickets and brought in and determine, like, if we, in the fall, if we do it soon enough, we know how much money's left in the budget. The one issue with that is that we do schedule our work, like do a work plan for the year, and sometimes it's too much time in the fall. So by having reserve, anyone that come here, we can do it early enough to program that in, make sure there's enough time to program that in.
Good, and that's the kind of thinking that we want. I think we have to come up with some other ways than just increasing taxation to achieve it. So yeah, please, I would encourage staff to consider that as an option. It's good. Anything else? Okay, final call on the budget 2026 as presented. Good. Can you put up the slide at the, so just to review the resolution that's on the floor, and I can't remember the mover. Oh, Councillor Olmsted was the mover, Councillor Moore was the seconder. Those are the three elements of that resolution that's on the floor. I'll just let council take a moment to review it. I know it was 3 hours ago. Good, so if I know it was a huge package, so if you want to make an amendment to it, that we can accept that now. Otherwise, I will call for the vote. Good, call for the vote. All those in favor? And it's carried unanimously. With that, I just want to first off thank the staff. I know this has been a tremendous amount of work, especially with the additional asks this year, 5-year forecasts, and forcing us to have these tough discussions. Thank you for doing that, and I think future councils are going to appreciate it, so thank you. Okay, what else is on this agenda? I can adjourn? Yes?
Unless there's something else, yes.
No. Yes, this was provided, is that just an example of what the bylaws?
Yeah, I think that's what's gonna go forward to council.
Perfect, so this is what's being brought forward to the council meeting.
Item number 2, I think it was, on the
Yeah.
recommendation.
Good. If there's no other final comments, we are adjourned at 2:51. For those people that are watching, we will initiate our council meeting at 3 p.m. Thank you.